Welcome back, everyone, to a new story. We really hope you enjoy it. Why is the reflection in the mirror a woman looking at me? The words echoed in the dark, but I hadn't spoken them aloud. They were a phantom whisper in my mind, the tail end of a nightmare that was becoming far too familiar. I shot up in bed, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. Cold sweat, slick and chilling, plastered the thin t-shirt to my back. My breath came in ragged gasps, each one dragging the stale, heavy air of my apartment deep into my lungs. The room was a mess, a testament to the man I had become. It smelled of ghosts and whiskey, the ghost of a family, the ghost of a career, and the bitter dregs of cheap whiskey in the bottle on my nightstand. For 2 years, my life had been a slow-motion collapse, and this apartment was the wreckage. This nightmare was the soundtrack. In the dream, I would always find myself standing before an old, ornate mirror, the kind you see in dusty antique shops. But the man looking back at me wasn't me. It was her, a woman with my dark hair, but long and flowing over her shoulders, a woman with my blue eyes, but deeper, holding a sorrow and a secret knowledge I couldn't comprehend. She would smile, a sad, enigmatic little curve of her lips, as if she knew me better than I knew myself, and every time, I'd wake up terrified, disoriented, and suffocatingly alone. I swung my legs over the side of the bed, my feet landing on something that crunched. I didn't have to look to know it was a bag of stale chips. The floor was an obstacle course of discarded clothes, empty takeout containers, and the casualties of my long war with sobriety. I stumbled through the darkness, my hand instinctively reaching for the bottle I knew was on the kitchen counter. My fingers closed around the cool glass, and I didn't even bother with a cup. The burn of the liquor was a familiar friend, a welcome punishment. My eyes fell on the photograph on the kitchen table, lying face up amidst a scattering of overdue bills. It was the only clean thing in the room. Catherine, my ex-wife, was laughing, her head thrown back, her smile so wide and genuine it hurt to look at. My arms were wrapped around her, and our children, Leo and Maya, were perched on our shoulders. We looked like a family from a catalog, the kind of happy that seems unbreakable, the kind of happy I had systematically dismantled. I lost everything. I whispered, the words scraping my throat. My fingers, trembling slightly, traced the outline of Catherine's face. What had happened? 1,000 small cuts. My writer's block had turned me into a ghost in my own home, irritable and distant. My frustration had curdled into anger, then into resentment. I had stopped listening. I had stopped seeing her. I saw only my own failure, reflected in her worried eyes. The arguments became more frequent, the silences between them longer, until one day, the silence was all that was left. She packed her bags, took the kids, and left me with the echo of a life we were supposed to build together. The nights were the worst. The silence of the apartment was a physical presence, pressing in on me. It amplified the memories, the regrets. I would lie awake for hours, replaying every mistake, every harsh word. Sleep, when it came, was no escape. It only brought the woman in the mirror, a constant, beautiful, terrifying reminder of what I didn't know. Tonight, the despair felt different, heavier. It felt like a finality, a door slamming shut in a long, dark hallway. I was tired of fighting, tired of hoping for a dawn that never came. I stumbled over to my old writing desk, a place I hadn't touched in months. It was covered in a thick layer of dust, a tombstone for my ambition. I blew the dust off an old leather-bound journal, a gift from Catherine from a time when she still believed in me. My hand shook as I uncapped a pen. What was there to even say I looked out the window at the city lights? 1,000,000 little windows holding 1,000,000 different lives, none of them as empty as mine. In a fit of drunken, desperate honesty, I started to write. The words flowed out of me, not with the grace of a novelist, but with the jagged edges of a broken man. I don't understand. I tried to understand what she wanted, what she needed from me. It's like she was speaking a different language, living in a different world. She'd talk about feelings, about connection, about the little things, and all I could hear was criticism. All I could feel was the weight of my own failure. What is it like to be her, to be a woman, to see the world through those eyes? My writing became more frantic. the letter sharp and angry. They feel things so differently. They navigate the world with a map I can't read. Maybe that's the problem. I'm a man trying to understand a woman's heart with a man's mind. It's impossible. It's like trying to see color when you've only ever known gray. Then, the final desperate plea spilled onto the page, a distillation of all my pain and confusion. I wish I could understand the world through the eyes of a woman. I wish I could just for a day, just for an hour, feel what they feel. Maybe then I could understand what I lost. Maybe then I could understand why. I dropped the pen. The words stared back at me from the page, stark and pathetic. I let out a harsh, bitter laugh that sounded more like a sob, a ridiculous, childish wish. I slammed the journal shut, the sound swallowed by the oppressive silence of the room. It was nothing, just words on a page. But as I stumbled back to my unmade bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. A cold breeze, seemingly from nowhere, rustled the papers on my desk. For a fleeting moment, I thought I saw a flicker of movement in the reflection of the dark window pane, the silhouette of a woman with long, flowing hair. I blinked, and it was gone. It was just the whiskey. I told myself it was just a stupid, drunken wish. I was wrong. It wasn't just a wish. It was a summons, and something, somewhere, in a place not of this world, had just answered. The next few days were a blur of the same suffocating routine. I'd wake up with a pounding headache, force myself to do the bare minimum of freelance copy editing work to keep the lights on, and then count the hours until it was acceptable to start drinking again. The city was in the grip of a humid, oppressive late summer. The air was thick and wet, making every breath feel like a chore. One afternoon, I couldn't stand the four walls of my apartment any longer. I needed to move, to see other people, even if I had no intention of speaking to them. I walked aimlessly, my feet carrying me to the local park, a sad little patch of green surrounded by concrete. I used to bring Leo and Maya here. We'd push them on the swings, their laughter echoing through the trees. Now, the sound of other children playing felt like a physical blow. I found an isolated path at the far end of the park and followed it, wanting only to be alone with my misery. At the end of the path was a single, solitary bench overlooking a small, murky pond, and on that bench a woman was sitting. She was watching the ducks, her posture serene and still. There was an otherworldly calm about her that seemed to ripple out, silencing the city noise around her. She had long, dark hair braided with a silver thread, and her skin was the color of warm mahogany. Her eyes, when she turned to look at me, were the darkest I had ever seen, deep and black and holding what felt like the wisdom of centuries. She wore a simple flowing dress the color of twilight, and for a moment I just stood there, captivated. Then she spoke, and her voice was as calm and deep as her eyes. "You look tired. Roland Ellis." The sound of my full name on her lips was a shock. I froze, my mind racing. Did I know her? I searched her face for any hint of familiarity, but found none. "I'm sorry," I stammered, feeling suddenly exposed. "Have we met?" "In a way," she said, a faint, mysterious smile playing on her lips. She patted the space on the bench beside her. "Please, sit." Every instinct told me to walk away, to run. This was New York City. Strange encounters were rarely a good thing, but I was tired of running, and there was something compelling in her gaze, something that felt safe. I found myself sitting down, leaving a careful distance between us. "How do you know my name?" I asked, my voice tight with suspicion. "I know more than your name," she replied, her gaze returning to the pond. "I know your wish." My blood ran cold. The journal, the drunken, pathetic scribbling in the middle of the night, it couldn't be. "I don't know what you're talking about." She turned to me, her dark eyes pinning me in place. "You wish to understand the world through a woman's eyes, to feel what they feel, a desperate, heartfelt plea sent out into the darkness. Some things in the darkness listen." A nervous, skeptical laugh escaped me. "Right, and I suppose you're some kind of genie here to grant my wish." I was trying to sound mocking, but my voice trembled. "Genie is such a limited term," she said, her smile widening slightly. "My name is Avani, and I am more of a facilitator. I offer doors. Whether you walk through them is up to you." She reached into a small cloth bag at her side and pulled something out. She opened her palm, and lying there was a silver ring. It was simple, elegant, with a delicate, stylized crescent moon carved into the band. A tiny moonstone nestled in its curve. A strange, faint light seemed to pulse from within the metal, a cool, silvery luminescence. "This is for you," she said, holding it out to me. I stared at it. A ring. What is this? Some kind of magic trick? "Think of it as a key," Avani said. "Tonight, the moon will be full, when its light shines through your window. Put this on, and when you do, don't think about the woman in your dreams. She is only a reflection of your longing. Think about the person you truly wish you could be. Think about the understanding you seek." This was insane. I was sitting in a park, talking to a crazy woman about a magic ring, and yet part of me, the broken, desperate part that had written that wish in the first place, was listening. I laughed again, this time with genuine, bitter amusement. So what? I'm supposed to wish to become that woman in my dream. Avani's smile became enigmatic, almost teasing. "Not her. You, when you are her." Her words sent a shiver down my spine. There was a strange, unsettling logic to them that I couldn't grasp but felt deep in my bones. I looked from the ring to her face. She was perfectly serious. There was no deceit in her eyes, only a profound and ancient stillness. "This is crazy," I said, shaking my head. But I didn't get up. I didn't walk away. "Is it any crazier than living the life you are living now?" she asked softly. Her question hit me with the force of a physical blow. She was right. What was my life now? An empty apartment, a bottle, and the ghosts of my past. What did I have to lose? Hesitantly, I reached out and took the ring from her palm. The silver was cool to the touch, but a strange, faint warmth pulsed from the moonstone. It felt impossibly old. "It's your choice, Roland," she said, rising gracefully from the bench. "Some doors, once opened, cannot be easily closed." And then she was gone. I blinked, and she had simply vanished into the afternoon crowd, as if she were a mirage. I was left alone on the bench, the silver ring clutched in my hand, its cool weight a tangible proof that the encounter had been real. That night, I did what I always did. I drank, I sat in my armchair, the ring on the table beside me, catching the dim light from the street lamp outside. I tried to tell myself it was a joke, a prank, a hallucination, but I couldn't bring myself to throw it away. As the hours passed and the bottle emptied, the line between reality and possibility began to blur. Around 2 a.m., it happened. A single, perfect beam of moonlight cut through the grime on my window, landing squarely on the dusty floor of my living room, the full moon. My heart started to pound. This was it. The moment of truth. Was I going to let this ridiculous, insane opportunity pass me by, or was I going to take the leap? Avani's words echoed in my head. What did I have to lose? With a hand that was far from steady, I picked up the ring. It felt cold against my skin. I remembered her instructions. Think about the understanding you seek. I closed my eyes. I didn't think about the woman in the mirror. I thought about the wish. I thought about Catherine's tear-streaked face during our last fight. I thought about the unreadable expression in her eyes as she said goodbye. I thought about all the things I had failed to understand, all the emotions I had dismissed. I poured all of my regret, my confusion, and my desperate yearning for a second chance into one single, focused thought. Let me understand. I slipped the ring onto the third finger of my right hand. The metal was cold, a stark contrast to my alcohol-warm skin. Then, a sensation like an electric shock shot up my finger. It wasn't painful, but it was intensely powerful. A warmth bloomed from the ring, a liquid heat that spread from my hand, up my arm, and into my chest. It felt like my entire circulatory system was being flooded with light. My body began to tingle, every nerve ending firing at once. The room around me started to dissolve, the edges blurring as if I were looking through water. A brilliant silver light erupted from the ring, filling my vision, blotting out everything. A force, immense and overwhelming, pushed me backward. I felt my body changing, twisting, reshaping itself on a molecular level. It was a symphony of sensation, a tearing, a stretching, a reforming. It was agony and ecstasy all at once. My bones felt like they were turning to liquid, my skin pulling taut in new and unfamiliar ways. A cry was ripped from my throat, but the voice that came out wasn't my own. It was higher, softer, feminine. Then, the world shattered into a million pieces of light, and I fell into darkness. Morning sunlight, warm and gentle, spilled across my eyelids. My first thought was that the light felt different, softer. My second thought was that my head didn't hurt. There was no hangover, no nauseating throb behind my eyes that had been my constant companion for 2 years. There was only a quiet, peaceful stillness. I stretched, and that's when the world tilted on its axis. A cascade of long, silky hair tumbled over my shoulder and brushed against my cheek. I froze, every muscle in my body going rigid. My hair was short, perpetually messy. This was not my hair. Slowly, tentatively, I brought a hand up to touch it. My hand, it looked wrong, slender, the fingers long and graceful, tipped with clean, perfectly shaped nails. This was not the calloused, scarred hand of a man who used to fix his own car and had a nervous habit of chewing his nails. Panic, cold and sharp, seized me. I sat bolt upright in bed. The movement was a revelation of strangeness. A distinct weight on my chest shifted, a soft, heavy fullness that was utterly alien. I looked down. Through the thin fabric of a silk nightgown, I saw the gentle slope of 2 breasts, rising and falling with my panicked breaths. My breath hitched. It wasn't a dream. I scrambled out of the bed with high thread count sheets that smelled faintly of lavender and stumbled, my legs feeling unsteady. Foreign, the center of gravity was all wrong. I lurched toward the full-length mirror standing in the corner of the bedroom. The room itself was as alien as the body I was in, clean, elegant, decorated in shades of cream and soft gray. Sunlight streamed through a large, sparkling clean window, illuminating dust-free surfaces. This wasn't my disaster of a bedroom. This wasn't my apartment. I reached the mirror and my hands flew to my mouth to stifle a scream, but the sound that escaped was a soft, breathy gasp. The woman from my nightmare stared back at me. But it wasn't a nightmare. It was me. My blue eyes. Yes, but they were larger, framed by thick, dark lashes. My nose, but it was straighter, more delicate. My mouth, but the lips were fuller. My face was heart-shaped, my jawline softer. The dark hair I'd touched moments before cascaded in soft waves around my shoulders. I was beautiful, and it was the most terrifying thing I had ever seen. I touched my face, and the reflection did the same. I ran a hand down my neck, over a smooth, slender collarbone. My hands moved lower, hesitating for a moment before cupping the unfamiliar weight of my breasts. They were soft, sensitive. A jolt, like a tiny electric current, went through me at my own touch. My God, they were real. I traced the new lines of my body, a narrow waist that flared into curved, womanly hips. The skin was soft, smooth everywhere. The rough, hairy geography of my old body was gone, replaced by this impossible, graceful form. "No," I whispered. The voice that came out was the one from the moment before I blacked out. It was a melody higher, softer, laced with a bewildered fear. This can't be happening. My eyes scanned the beautiful, unfamiliar room. On an elegant cherrywood desk in the corner, a stack of books was neatly arranged. I walked over, my movements awkward, like a puppet learning to use its strings. The name on the book spines read Rolanda Ellis. Underneath, in smaller letters, it said National Bestseller. On the wall were framed book covers, reviews from prestigious newspapers. Reality hadn't just changed my body. It had rewritten my entire life. Roland Ellis, the washed-up, blocked writer, was gone. In his place was Rolanda Ellis, a literary star. On a vanity table next to the desk, propped against a jewelry box, was an author ID card for an upcoming literary festival. The photo was of the face I was now wearing. Beside it lay a schedule for a book signing and a red silk dress, draped carefully over the back of the chair. It seemed to have been laid out for a special occasion. The first practical, terrifying thought sliced through my panic. I couldn't stay in this nightgown forever. I had to get dressed. The thought of putting on women's clothes sent a wave of shame and fear through me. a deeply ingrained masculine revulsion. But what choice did I have? I was a woman. I had to dress the part. My hands trembled as I reached for the clothes. I started with what was in the top drawer of the vanity: underwear, a whisper-thin bra of black lace, and a matching pair of silk panties. I had never held anything so delicate. I fumbled with the bra, trying to figure out the hooks and straps. It felt like solving a complex puzzle. After several clumsy attempts, I finally managed to clasp it behind my back. The feeling was bizarre, a slight constriction around my ribs, the straps digging gently into my shoulders, the cups cradling my new breasts. It felt both foreign and, in a strange way, secure. The silk panties were easier, gliding smoothly over my hips, the fabric cool and soft against my skin. Next, the dress. The silk felt like liquid fire as I picked it up. It was a simple, elegant wrap dress, the color of a deep, rich wine. I slipped it over my head, the sensation of the material sliding over my shoulders, across my breasts, and down my legs was electrifying. It was a feeling I had no words for, a soft, whispering caress against my new, sensitive skin. The fabric hugged my waist and flowed over my hips, accentuating curves I was still struggling to comprehend as my own. It felt right, terrifyingly, exhilaratingly right. I turned to the mirror. The woman who looked back at me was a stranger, but she was also undeniably me. The dress made her look sophisticated, confident, for the first time. A feeling other than fear crept in. It was a flicker of curiosity, a tiny spark of excitement. Just then, her phone, lying on the bedside table, began to vibrate. The screen lit up with the name Ethan. My heart leaped into my throat. I had a life with people in it, people who knew Rolanda, not Roland. I stared at the buzzing phone, my mind a blank slate of panic. I had to answer. Not answering would be suspicious. With a deep, steadying breath that did little to calm me, I picked up the phone and swiped to answer. I put it to my ear, my lips feeling too numb to form words. "Good morning, beautiful." A man's voice, warm and rich like dark chocolate, flowed through the speaker. "You up already? I was just picturing you all sleepy-eyed and adorable." My throat was dry. I swallowed. Morning," I managed to say. The sound of my own voice was still a shock. "You okay? You sound a little distant," he said, a note of concern in his tone. "Just woke up," I lied, still a bit groggy. "Well, I was hoping I could be the reason you fully wake up. Lunch today, my treat. There's a new Italian place on Grove Street I've been wanting to try with you." Ethan. The name suggested a boyfriend, a partner. The casual intimacy in his voice confirmed it. I was in a relationship I knew nothing about, with a man I had never met. I had to see him. I had to try and navigate this new reality, or I would be discovered as a fraud. "Yes," I heard myself say, "lunch sounds lovely." "Great, I'll pick you up at 1. And hey, Rolanda." "Yes." "Can't wait to see you." He hung up. I lowered the phone, my hand shaking violently. Rolanda, he called me Rolanda. It was my name now. I spent the next few hours in a daze of terrified preparation. I found the makeup bag and stared at its contents like they were alien artifacts. I made a clumsy attempt with some mascara and lipstick, feeling like a child playing dress-up. I found a pair of black, low-heeled pumps in the closet. Putting them on was another challenge. They forced me to stand differently, to balance my weight in a way that pushed my hips forward slightly. I took a few tentative steps around the room, wobbling precariously. At exactly 1 o'clock, the buzzer rang. My heart hammered against the delicate lace of my new bra. This was it, the first test. I took one last look in the mirror. A beautiful, terrified stranger in a red dress looked back at me. I took a deep breath and went to let him in. When I opened the door, a handsome man with kind green eyes and a warm smile was standing there. Ethan. He was holding a single yellow rose. His smile widened when he saw me, his eyes sweeping over me in a way that was both appreciative and deeply familiar. It was a look no man had ever given me before. It made my stomach flutter with a mixture of fear and a strange, unfamiliar warmth. "Wow," he breathed, stepping inside. "Rolanda, you look incredible. There's something different about you today. You're practically glowing." He leaned in and gave me a soft kiss on the cheek. His lips were warm, his scent a mix of clean soap and something subtly spicy. The casual, intimate gesture sent a bolt of lightning through me. My cheeks flushed, a hot blush spreading across my face. It was a purely physical reaction, completely outside of my control. "Thank you," I managed to say, my voice barely a whisper. He looked at me, his head tilted. "You really are feeling quiet today. Everything all right?" I forced a smile, hoping it looked convincing. "Everything's perfect. I'm just really looking forward to lunch." He bought it. He smiled, took my hand, and his touch was warm and steady. As he led me out the door, I felt like an actress stepping onto a stage for the first time. With no script and no idea what my lines were supposed to be, all I knew was that I was Rolanda Ellis now, and I had to learn how to play the part of a lifetime. The weeks that followed were a surreal crash course in the art of being a woman. Every day was a mix of quiet terror and unexpected discovery. I lived in constant fear of being exposed, of making a mistake that would unravel this fragile new reality. I learned to navigate my life by listening, by observing, by piecing together the woman I was supposed to be from the clues she had left behind. Her friends would call, and I would let them lead the conversation, storing away names and anecdotes. I read her books, trying to understand the mind of this brilliant, successful woman who wore my face. Her writing was filled with an emotional depth and empathy that the old me, Roland, had lacked completely. I started to see that Rolanda's success wasn't just a magical gift, it was a result of the very perceptiveness I had wished for. The physical aspects of my new life were a constant challenge. Learning to walk in heels was a monumental undertaking. My first few attempts left my ankles sore and my pride bruised. But slowly, I got the hang of it. I learned that it wasn't about just putting one foot in front of the other. It was about a shift in posture, a gentle sway of the hips to maintain balance. I started to notice the subtle power in it, the way it made me stand taller. The rhythmic click-clack on the pavement that announced my presence. The feeling of a skirt or a dress swishing against my legs as I walked became a familiar, almost comforting sensation. Living with Ethan was another landscape of fear and fascination. He was kind, attentive, and clearly in love with Rolanda. Every day, I expected him to see through my facade. I had no shared memories with him. When he'd say, "Remember that time we went to the lake house?" I'd have to bluff, offering a vague smile and a non-committal. Of course, that was a wonderful trip. Miraculously, he never seemed to notice. Or maybe, as he'd told me that first day, he just chalked it up to me being a little different lately, more thoughtful, perhaps a bit quieter. The intimacy was the hardest part. The first time he kissed me properly, on the couch after dinner one evening, my entire system went into shock. His touch was gentle, his lips soft. He was expecting the passionate response of the woman he loved. I, however, was a man in a woman's body being kissed by another man. The ingrained homophobia of my past self recoiled, but the body I was in, it responded differently. A warmth spread through my stomach. My skin tingled where he touched me, and my lips softened under his. It was a dizzying, confusing storm of Roland's panic and Rolanda's pleasure. I pulled away, breathless and flustered, claiming I was tired. He was patient, understanding. He just kissed my forehead and told me to get some rest. These moments of closeness were both a trial and a strange sort of gift. He would rest his hand on the small of my back as we walked into a restaurant, a simple, possessive gesture that sent a shiver through me. He'd brush a stray strand of hair from my face, his touch lingering for a second too long. I was seeing the world from the other side of the looking glass, experiencing the subtle dance of flirtation and affection as the recipient, not the initiator. And to my utter shock, a part of me didn't hate it. A part of me was beginning to like it. I was living in a strange paradise, filled with success, affection, and a beauty I'd never imagined possessing. But paradise had a serpent. It started subtly, at night, when the apartment was quiet and I was brushing my teeth. I'd sometimes catch a flicker in the mirror, for a split second. The reflection wouldn't be Rolanda's. It would be him, Roland, gaunt, unshaven, his eyes filled with a desperate sadness. I'd blink, and he'd be gone, leaving me with my own wide, terrified eyes staring back. He was a ghost in my machine, a reminder of the life I'd left behind. Then came the dreams. I wouldn't dream of the woman in the mirror anymore. I'd dream of the sound of children's laughter, two specific laughs that I knew as well as my own heartbeat, and then a small voice, calling out in the darkness, "Daddy, where are you, Daddy?" I'd wake up with tears streaming down my face, a profound ache in my chest for a loss I couldn't quite name. The memories of my children, of Leo and Maya, were like phantom limbs. I knew they were gone, but I could still feel them, a constant, dull throb of absence. The dam of my carefully constructed new reality finally broke on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. I was in the local supermarket, picking up ingredients for a dinner I was planning to cook for Ethan, another first for me. I was actually enjoying myself, pushing the cart down the aisle, contemplating pasta shapes, and then I saw them. Across the produce section, standing by the apples, were Catherine and my children. My heart stopped. It was them, but not them. Catherine looked tired but resilient. Her hair was cut shorter. Leo and Maya were older than I remembered, taller. Maya's hair was in two pigtails, just like she always liked. Leo was wearing a superhero t-shirt, his face serious as he inspected a red, delicious apple. They were a snapshot from a life that wasn't mine anymore, yet every fiber of my being screamed that they were. I froze, hiding behind a tower of cereal boxes, my knuckles white on the handle of the shopping cart. I wanted to run to them, to sweep my children into my arms, to tell Catherine I was sorry, so desperately sorry for everything. But they would see a stranger, a woman in a stylish trench coat and heeled boots. As I watched, paralyzed, Maya tugged on her mother's sleeve. She was looking right at me, her little brow furrowed. "Mommy," she said, her childish voice carrying across the aisle with perfect clarity. "Why is that lady looking at us? She looks at me like Daddy used to." The words struck me like a physical blow. Catherine turned, her eyes scanning in my direction. Our gazes met for a brief, terrifying second. I saw confusion in her eyes, a flicker of something unreadable. The box of pasta I was holding slipped from my numb fingers and crashed to the floor, scattering penny across the linoleum. The sound broke the spell. My legs, shaking uncontrollably, finally obeyed me. I abandoned my cart and fled, pushing past startled shoppers, out the automatic doors and into the cold, cleansing rain. I didn't stop running until I was safely back inside Rolanda's beautiful, sterile apartment. I slammed the door behind me and slid to the floor, my body racked with sobs. They weren't the delicate, feminine tears I imagined Rolanda might cry. They were the ugly, gasping, gut-wrenching sobs of Roland Ellis, a father who had just seen his own children and couldn't go to them. The red dress, the perfect makeup, the life of success, it was all a lie. A beautiful cage. That night, she came back. I was standing in front of the mirror, wiping away the smeared mascara from my face, when her reflection appeared behind me, Avani. "The price of a wish is always steep," she said softly, her voice seeming to come from the air itself. I spun around, my heart pounding. She was standing in the middle of my living room, as serene and out of place as she had been on the park bench. "You did this to me," I screamed, my voice cracking. "You have to change me back. I want my life back. I want my children." "The life you had was a ruin." "Roland," she said, her expression unchanging, her tone devoid of pity. "You wished for understanding. You are living it. This life, this body, this is the vessel for that knowledge." "But my kids," I choked out. "I can't be without them." "That is the paradox," Avani said, taking a step closer, but no, for Rolanda to exist, Roland must disappear. But a father's memory, a father's love, is not so easily erased. It lingers. It is the ghost that will always haunt you. "Then let me go back," I begged, tears streaming down my face again. "Please, I'll do anything." Avani shook her head slowly. "You can't go back. The door you walked through has closed behind you." Her dark eyes softened for the first time, a flicker of something like compassion in their depths. "But there is another way. You don't have to erase Roland. You can't. But you can integrate. You can learn to be both. Stop fighting the tide and learn to swim with it. It's the only way to heal, the only way for either of you to be whole." She placed a cool hand on my shoulder. "You are not Roland in a woman's body, nor are you simply Rolanda. You are something new. Find the strength in that." And as quickly as she appeared, She was gone, leaving only the scent of sandalwood and the echo of her impossible words. Integrate. How could I possibly integrate two people, two lives, two genders into one single, coherent soul? It felt like an impossible task, but as I looked at my tear-streaked face in the mirror, I knew it was the only choice I had left. Avani's words haunted me for days. Integrate. It sounded like a line from a self-help book, a platitude that offered no real instruction. How was I supposed to merge a ghost with a living, breathing person for the first few days? I did nothing but exist. I canceled my plans with Ethan. Feigning a sudden illness, I stayed in the apartment, wrapped in a bathrobe, feeling the chasm between Roland and Rolanda wider than ever. Roland's grief for his children was a raw, open wound. Rolanda's life, once a fascinating puzzle, now felt like an elaborate prison. The turning point came not as a lightning bolt of insight, but as a quiet, gradual shift. I was sitting by the window watching the city move below me, feeling completely disconnected from it all. My hand absent-mindedly rested on my stomach, and I felt the gentle rise and fall of my own breathing. For the first time, I focused on it, not as a man experiencing a woman's body, but just as a person, breathing. I focused on the sensation of the soft fabric of the robe against my skin, the warmth of the sun on my arm. These were Rolanda's senses, but the mind observing them was mine. It was Roland's. No, that wasn't right. The distinction was starting to feel blurry, artificial. I stood up and walked to the mirror, my reflection looking pale and tired. I looked deep into my own eyes. I saw Roland's sorrow there, the years of regret and loneliness. But I also saw Rolanda's intelligence, her sensitivity. They weren't fighting for control. They were just both there, coexisting in the same gaze. Stop fighting the tide. I decided to try. I wouldn't try to be Roland, and I wouldn't try to be Rolanda. I would just be. I started by exploring this new body not as an alien vessel, but as my own. I took a long bath, and instead of feeling ashamed or dissociated, I paid attention to the sensations, the way the warm water enveloped my skin, the lightness of my limbs, the way my long hair floated around me like seaweed. It wasn't sexual. It was tactile. It was a simple act of inhabiting my own form. The next day, I dressed with intention. I didn't just put on an outfit, I chose one. A pair of soft, well-fitting jeans, a simple cashmere sweater, and flat boots. It was a comfortable, practical outfit. As I dressed, I didn't feel like I was putting on a costume. I felt like I was clothing my body. The softness of the cashmere against my skin was a quiet pleasure. The snug fit of the jeans around my hips felt solid, grounding. These weren't women's clothes. They were my clothes. This new perspective began to change everything. I started to understand that the femininity I had been thrust into wasn't a weakness, it was a different kind of strength. Roland had always mistaken sensitivity for fragility. He'd built walls around his heart, believing that was how a man was supposed to be strong. But Rolanda's strength was in her openness, her ability to feel deeply, to connect with the emotional currents of the world around her. It's what made her a great writer. It's what made her a loving partner to Ethan. I called Ethan and apologized for shutting him out. He came over that evening, his face etched with worry. I didn't try to act like the Rolanda he knew. I was just myself, quieter, more thoughtful. We sat on the couch, and for the first time, I told him something real, not the whole truth. Of course that was impossible. But I told him I'd been feeling lost lately, grappling with old memories and a sense of who I was. It feels like I'm two different people sometimes, I said, the words feeling truer than anything I had ever spoken. He didn't laugh or dismiss it. He simply took my hand. Well, he said softly, his green eyes full of sincerity. I love both of them. His simple, unconditional acceptance was a balm on my fractured soul. Later that night, when he kissed me, I didn't pull away. I didn't analyze it or panic. I allowed myself to feel it. I felt the softness of his lips, the gentle strength in his arms as he held me, and the warm, fluttering response in my own body. It wasn't Roland's mind recoiling or Rolanda's body responding. It was just me, a whole person, being held and cared for, and it was beautiful. The memories of my children didn't disappear. The pain of seeing them in the supermarket didn't vanish. But it changed. It was no longer a tormenting ghost. It became a part of the tapestry of who I was, the love I felt for them. Roland's powerful, paternal love, was still inside me. It wasn't a contradiction to my new life. It was an enrichment. It deepened my capacity for love, for empathy. I could hold my love for my children and my growing affection for Ethan in my heart at the same time. They were two different notes in the same complex chord. A week after my breakdown, I found myself in front of the full-length mirror again. I had just finished getting ready to go out for the evening. I was wearing a simple, elegant dark blue dress. My hair was styled, my makeup subtle. I looked at the reflection, and for the first time, I didn't see a stranger. I didn't see Roland's ghost or a beautiful mask called Rolanda. I saw myself. I leaned in closer, my breath fogging the glass. I spoke the words aloud, my voice steady and clear. "I am Roland," I said, acknowledging the past, the father, the man who made the wish. His pain and his love were my foundation. Then, I met my own gaze again. "And I am Rolanda." The name felt natural on my tongue for the first time. It represented the present, the strength, the grace, the person who is learning to live and love again. In that moment, something inside me clicked into place. The two realities in my head, the two identities I had been warring with, didn't shatter or vanish. They fused. It was like two colors of light blending to create a new, more vibrant shade. I wasn't a man trapped in a woman's body. I was a soul that had lived as both, a person who had been given the painful, terrifying, miraculous gift of understanding. The ghost in the mirror was gone. When I looked now, I saw only one person, her eyes holding the history of a man and the future of a woman. A quiet, peaceful smile touched my lips. It was a smile of acceptance, a smile that was finally, completely, my own. I was whole. The following Saturday was bright and crisp, one of those perfect autumn days where the air feels clean and full of possibility. I had spent the morning writing, the words flowing with an ease and clarity I hadn't felt since before my life collapsed. The story was different from anything Rolanda or Roland had ever written before. It was a story about loss and transformation, filled with a new kind of emotional honesty. I felt a sense of purpose, of peace, that I hadn't thought was possible. Around noon, just as I was making myself a cup of tea, there was a knock at the door. It was a hesitant, uncertain sound, not the confident rap of a courier, nor the familiar rhythm of Ethan's knock. My heart gave a little jump. I wasn't expecting anyone. I walked to the door and looked through the peephole. My breath caught in my throat, and the world seemed to slow down. Standing in the hallway was Catherine, and clutching her hands on either side were my children, Leo and Maya. Panic, cold and familiar, washed over me for a second before I pushed it down. The old me would have hidden, would have pretended not to be home, but I wasn't the old me anymore. I took a deep, steadying breath, smoothed down the front of my sweater, and opened the door. Catherine looked as shocked to see me as I was to see her. She was dressed in jeans and a jacket, and her face was a mixture of apology and bewilderment. "I am so sorry to bother you," she began, her words coming out in a rush. "My name is Catherine. We don't know each other, but this is going to sound crazy." She took a breath, gesturing toward our son, my son Leo. "He insisted on coming here. We were at the park down the street, and he saw your building and just started walking this way. He says he knows you. He says you're the lady from the grocery store." I looked down at Leo. He had his father's, my serious eyes. He stared up at me, his gaze intense and unwavering. He wasn't looking at me like he was looking at a stranger. He was looking at me like he was trying to solve a puzzle that was right on the tip of his tongue. Maya was hiding shyly behind her mother's leg, peeking out at me with wide, curious eyes. "I'm so sorry," Catherine said again, looking mortified. "We should go. I don't know what got into him." She started to gently pull on his hand, but Leo didn't budge. He took a small step forward, away from his mother, and closer to me. "You feel familiar," he said, his small voice filled with a child's simple, profound certainty. "You have sad eyes, like my daddy did." Catherine's breath hitched. My heart felt like it was going to break open right there in the hallway. This was it, the moment where my two worlds collided, not in a mirror or a memory, but in real life. I could close the door. I could deny it, send them away, and preserve my safe new life. But that would be Roland's fear. That would be Rolanda's caution. It wouldn't be me. Slowly, gracefully. I knelt down, bringing myself to eye level with my son. The hem of my jeans brushed against the cool floor of the hallway. The action was instinctive, the way a parent lowers themselves to speak to a child. I looked at his small, serious face, and all the love I had been holding inside me, the fierce, protective love of a father, swelled in my chest. I gave him a smile. It wasn't just Roland's sad smile, or Rolanda's polite one. It was something new, a smile that was gentle but strong, born of pain and understanding, a smile that held everything I was.
"Hello, Leo," I said, my voice soft. "My name is Rolanda."
I reached out my hand, not to touch him, but as an open, gentle invitation. He looked at my hand, then back up at my face. The confusion in his eyes was still there, but it was mixed with a glimmer of trust. Catherine stood frozen, watching this impossible interaction, her mind clearly struggling to make sense of what she was seeing. I looked from Leo's face to Maya's and then up to Catherine. I held her gaze, and I let her see everything in my eyes, the shared history, the profound sorrow, and the strange peace I had finally found. "Maybe," I said, my voice steady despite the tremor I felt deep inside, "maybe you could all come in for a minute." I looked back at my children, the two most precious parts of my past, standing on the doorstep of my future. I knew this wasn't an ending. It was a beginning, a strange, complicated, and terrifying new beginning, and it would start with a story, my story. "Let me tell you a story," I said softly, my smile deepening. I was no longer a father lost to them, or a strange woman in a grocery store. I was someone new, someone who could finally bridge the gap. It's a story about a man who once wished he could understand how a woman feels.